There's a light in the sky, rising in the air. There's a feeling so strong. It's time to light the fire, like a bright shining light. Learn, getting more out of life. Love, sharing time with friends, feeling so strong.
Hello and welcome to the House of Wellness. I'm Luke Darcy. Great to be here, as always, next to Joe Stanley. Luke Hines is on the couch.
G'day.
He's out on assignment this week, but the magnificent Bianca Chatfield joins us. G'day, Bianca.
Oh, thanks for having
Magnificent
me.
you
Great
are.
to be back.
Now, Bianca is all things, not only a superstar champion, one of Australia's greatest ever netballers, but you've also been a champion in the home renovator space, so you've got all bases covered for us, Bianca.
Well, you say all bases covered, but not enough bases to get me to Hawaii. I'm very jealous of you three.
Yeah, that was a pretty amazing experience. And you know what? I just want to express gratitude. We don't take that for granted. It was an amazing thing to be able to go to Hawaii as a team. And what a healing place that is.
It was so fantastic to bond with everyone. I got to see GQ in a Hawaiian shirt, which was definitely a highlight for me. And I would love it if you would join us on our next trip. So it would be fantastic.
Coming next time.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely determined to keep all the Hawaii vibes going. I mean, guys, you know I love one of those bullet coffees. Meeting those boys was legendary. And the honey from the hemp farm was also amazing. It was cross-pollinated with the local Christmas berry, which has properties similar to Manuka. So I'm going to keep the honey theme going with a little bit more on that later.
Bit of a Hawaii buzz still going on, Joe. I like it here today. Hey, police mental health has become a huge issue, especially for retired servicemen and women from Victoria Police. We're going to talk about that today. Plus, American activist Erin Brockovich, played by Julia Roberts in the movie the same name, is going to be our special guest today as well.
Well, you are dropping some massive names there, Darcy. But let me one-up you with Sarah Jessica Parker. You know, she played Carrie Bradshaw for 6 series and 2 Sex and the City films. And she's been in Australia on a whirlwind promo tour. Bianca, were you a Sex and the City fan? Obviously.
Oh, of course I was. Please tell me she was as amazing in person as what she was on TV.
She was absolutely divine. I'm completely in love with her. Among other things, Sarah Jessica came to Australia to promote her signature perfume, Lovely, which has been a bestseller here for 15 years, and I was lucky enough to spend some time with New York's favourite resident.
Is it okay?
Yes, come in. Please come in. I know.
This is so pretty.
Isn't it?
Hi, you look so beautiful.
so do you.
Nice to see you.
Lovely to see you.
Been a while.
It has been a while.
Should
Please
I-
have a
is that
seat.
me?
That's for
Okay.
you, yeah.
One might think we coordinated,
I know.
but one would be wrong.
Well, that's true.
It's
but,
just a psychic coordination.
Yeah. Sarah Jessica, congratulations on all of your success in everything you've done, but specifically your fragrance, Lovely.
Yes.
It has been the best-selling perfume in Australia for 3 years now, and of course it's been around since 2005. What was the reason that you decided to create fragrance? What drew you to that?
Well, like many children, male and female, I was often my mother's audience as she got ready to leave the house. My mother didn't go out a lot, and she didn't have a particularly glamorous or extravagant life. But on the occasion when she would go out, she would get ready, and we would sit and watch, or would be witness in some part of the process, and the last thing she would do was spray fragrance, and then we would all be sort of downwind of my mother, you know? Yeah. And I think it's what began my relationship with fragrance. Like, I had very specific memories about it. Obviously, smell is can be very sentimental for us. It can be transportive, you know, nostalgic. And I think I started loving fragrance just watching my mother get ready at night, and also just remembering how it smelled and she smelled, and she kind of became something else when she left the house, probably the person she was much more, you know, and she was able to not be, you know, I'm one of 8 kids, so, I mean, when it's likely that she was like, we were watching the transformation of who she remembered herself being before she became, you know, the warden of a...
Yes, I understand.
Juvenile penile colony, like it, you know. So I think maybe for us it was like seeing her the way maybe her grown-up friends saw her, you know.
And you released Born Lovely last year, which also has been a massive success. What sets your perfumes apart?
I think I wanted it to be in people's lives for a long time, the way my mother had her fragrance. And what I wanted was something that felt classic and, yes, feminine, but that suited a lot of people. I always said it was an extremely polite perfume, but it was also very hospitable. Like, you could help tell it what it should be. Like, you could project onto Lovely. Some fragrances are really have such a strong personality. You know, you have to fit into their life.
Yeah, right.
But Lovely had the ability, and still does, to be a lot of things to a lot of people.
And so your work is just so demanding. You do so much. When you get home after being away, what is your go-to meal that feeds your soul?
Well, we cook a lot in our house. We cook almost every single meal. My husband's a very, 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 very good cook.
Oh, lucky you.
Yes, it's really lucky. And I cook a lot, and it's not for me to say if I'm a good cook, but so far, people seem to be thriving.
Kids tell you if you're no good.
Yeah. But there are things that they really love that I cook, but there are things that Matthew makes. So I think we're nourished. Like, we love lamb stew. I make a lamb stew that I'm very proud of, but the kids all love it. Chili, roast chicken. Matthew makes beautiful pastas, and he makes beautiful stews and soups, beautiful soups. We eat a lot of salads in our house. One daughter in particular makes the salad dressing incredible. She chops shallots and mixes, and she's a great cook. And, you know, we love food in our house, and we don't deprive ourselves. I think great food alone is wonderful, but I think the nourishment comes really from the company you keep. Like, you can have a great meal, and you might choose to be alone, and that's quite nice too, right? Mm-hmm. But it really is nice when we're all together. You know, I think the nourishment comes in a lot of ways.
So you've followed so many dreams. What's next for you?
I'm going to do a play with my husband on Broadway, so we'll start work on that in a couple of months. I'm excited and nervous. And then after that, it'll be my son's senior year, so I really want to be home next year. I really want to be home and do short trips and really focus on the businesses and the acting. Just take a teeny break, just because it really calls your attention elsewhere, and I want my attention to be on home next year.
Sarah Jessica, thank you so much for your generosity. It's been amazing to chat with you.
Thank you for having me. It's so nice to see you.
Wow.
Starstruck. What can I say? Do you know what is amazing about Sarah Jessica? For all of her absolute stardom, and she is one of the greatest performers and entrepreneurs you can find, she's normal like everybody else, generous and kind and intelligent and wise, and, you know, and a mum and a wife. Oh. That's what she is.
I still remember her as the cute friend in Footloose. Do you remember that?
Yeah, Girls Just Want to Have Fun was one of the first films I saw as a teenager.
Yes.
Stop it.
Some serious bonding there with you and Sarah Jessica. You going to catch up in the future?
Yeah, besties.
Well, I'm waiting for her to, I don't know, Instagram me, and we might catch up next time I'm in New York. Sure. Okay. I'm there for you.
Good luck with that. From a small screen idol to the real life heroes keeping our streets and communities safe, we look at the toll police work can have on the mental health of the force. That's next. Welcome back to the House of Wellness. We see them out in the streets every day, the men and women in blue who devote their lives to law enforcement. It's a diverse job. Police duties vary enormously, Jo.
Absolutely. Policing can be anything from the street beat to CIB investigations, forensic and accidents, at times dealing with some pretty grim crime scenes. So it's no wonder police officers can often be left traumatised.
Yeah, that's right. Many retired officers especially are suffering things like PTSD, other mental health problems, largely in silence. Now that the problem's been identified, there's a growing push within the police force to fix it. Let's take a look.
I loved policing. I miss it terribly. It is a fantastic job. It's rewarding, it's fulfilling. There's very little about it I don't like, and I miss it a lot. I don't know if I ever expected to see so much trauma, so much sadness, so much grief, because I'd never really been exposed to that, even though I was 27 when I joined. And I'd lived a pretty good life, but I'd never seen anything like that. And I don't know if I was expecting it to be quite that dramatic, but I loved it all the same. You know, I found a body in a boot, which we thought was a body, but it ended up the lady was alive just. But seeing people so vulnerable and so, I suppose, scared, those sort of things stay with you. At the time, I coped very well. But when I left my colleagues, when I left the job that I was doing, or you get in the car to drive home, that's when your mind starts, I think you realise what you've done during the day. And I don't think at the time it affected me, but every job that I went to, I think it built up. And at the end, I got to the point where I couldn't handle any job. I couldn't manage anything. And I remember I used to get home and I was so exhausted emotionally. Some people would stay up, and I know a lot of my colleagues would have a drink before they went to bed, or they'd have to go for a walk or something to unwind. But I found that I was so exhausted emotionally that I would go home and I could sleep for 12 hours, 14 hours, because I was just so tired. But generally, I found it very difficult to turn off because I cared. I cared about the people. I cared about the people that were left. And I thought I was turning off, but I wasn't. I had an amnesia event, which I didn't know what it was. But I had to view a lot of, about 1,700 child pornographic videos, not photos, videos. I had to do it for 2 days. And when I went back to work, something had shifted. I don't know what, but I just couldn't manage. And then the next day, I had a committal. And in the committal, I remember being behind the rape victim. I was the informant. I'm in charge of the committal. And I can remember thinking to myself, this is so wrong. She's been raped all over again. And it's my fault. Next minute, I'm having a coffee over at the coffee shop. Seriously, I was in La La Land. My mind had just shut down. And after that, I thought, boy, Narelle, you'd better go and see someone. And that's when I hung off for 4 months, thinking I can get through this. But when the doctor told me I had post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, hand on my heart, I said to him, what's that? This is in 2012. I had no idea. I was humiliated. I was embarrassed. I felt like I'd be talked about as being weak and unable to cope. Oh, it was a terrible time. I got into the PTSD clinic at the Austin Hospital, and that was a game changer for me because it made me realise how sick I was, and it also made me realise that I wasn't alone. I was with 8 other beautiful, traumatised, so sad other police that had been through similar sort of things to me. And the bond that I had with those people, the tools that I learned to manage, the PTSD clinic was probably the best thing I ever did, that the police helped me with. I don't think police manage their emotional side very well. We suppress it. With police, you have to put up that facade. And what happens is you put up a facade, a wall, so high, so tall, so strong, that nobody can penetrate it, not even us. Today, I am great. I don't think I will ever be 100%, but who is? I have learned the tools to manage my PTSD, but my life has gone in unbelievable directions. I have become this accidental mental health advocate. I have found, by being honest, by sharing my vulnerabilities with people, so many people have connected with me, and my life changed when I was diagnosed with PTSD, but it just went in another way. It wasn't the end of the world, it was the start of a new world. My message to any police, whether they are at the academy or whether they've been in there 50 years, is the same thing. Do not ignore your mental health like I did, because you will pay a price. Show your vulnerabilities. Put your hand up and say, I'm not managing, because I didn't. And I lost what I consider to be the best job in the world.
It is hard to fathom what the men and women of our police forces have to deal with. And so it's a no-brainer that they receive all the care that they need over any trauma on the job or after they've retired.
And look, like any type of protracted exposure to some of the things that they have to see and deal with, every person processes it differently and at different stages of their lives.
Yeah, we're going to be discussing this more when Victoria Police Commissioner Graham Ashton joins us next. He's been an incredible advocate for this space. He's coming up on the House of Wellness right after the break. Welcome back. Before the break, we met one of the many Australian police officers who's suffered trauma as a result of their work keeping us safe on the streets. Joining us now to talk more about the issue, please welcome Victorian Police Commissioner Graham Ashton to the House of Wellness. Welcome, Graham.
Thanks, Luke.
Great to have you. You've been Chief Commissioner of Victoria Police since 2015 and you've put mental health problems plaguing the force as a top priority, which has taken great leadership and courage for you to do that in your own right. Can you talk us through some of the trauma that officers face?
Well, it's wellness is a massive issue in policing. It's just across the country, police are trying to deal with the after effects of having to deal with attending trauma and supporting people who themselves have been traumatised, and that's taken its impact. So over the years in policing, it's been something that you didn't talk about, something that was swept under the carpet, and all we found was that was exacerbating harm. We needed to get the conversations, the mental health conversations out into the open, and we need to actually start to support police who are having to do this work, both during the time that they're serving, but also when they're in police veterans after they've served as well. It's a great responsibility that we have to get on top of.
So, Graham, we as civilians see the stories on the news and they're obviously very traumatic. It's something perhaps that a lot of people don't think about is the impact on the police officers that are there. It must be huge, though. What do you see?
Yeah, it is huge, Jay, because the police are trained, when they come through the academy, they're trained to be the people that cope. And when they attend a traumatic event, it'll often be at a time that's the worst time in someone's life, the most vulnerable they are in their life when the police officer attends. They need the police officer to help them with their particular issue that they're dealing with, their particular emergency. So for the police, they're being the person that can cope, the person that can support them. They're part of that sort of a traumatic event in a way, and then the police officer will leave that event and they'll go to the next event, which again is of a similar nature, and they're doing that all the time. So there's a cumulative impact to doing that work when you are always the person that has to cope. And so when you yourself are struggling, it's difficult to speak up and ask for help.
Graham, was there a particular moment that made you aware that there was some mental health issues with some police?
Well, I've been in policing for nearly 40 years, and all through that time I've seen the impacts of mental health on policing and wellness generally. I've had close friends in the police that have taken their own life. And, I've reflected often on that, as I'm sure many police have. You wouldn't find any police that would have worked for any length of time that wouldn't be close to someone that's, actually found their situation's been so bad that they've had to take their own life. So it's something that's ever present. And as someone that goes to all of those funerals, you see the effect on families as well. So
part of an officer's training must be to not show emotion to an extent. How hard does that make it then for them to open up? Very
culturally difficult. That policing culture is a coping culture. So we've had to actually change the culture and change the conversation to make sure that wellness is brought out as an open conversation. But as part of that, particularly for our police leaders, to make sure that they're literate in mental health as well. So they ask the right questions and they're attuned to when to ask those questions. That's really important.
Graham, you've also specifically been talking about retired police officers and their needs going beyond working in the force. Have they been left behind in some way?
Really, they have. So over the years, definitely. There's an old saying in police, once you're an ex, you're an ex. You go out the door and the support stops, the comradeship stops. We've got to turn that around because a lot of people have left policing in order to try and deal with issues that they're trying to cope with. And when they leave, they're suddenly in an unsupported environment. So we've had to really rethink how we're going to be supporting police veterans. And so we've been able, over particularly recent time, to do more of that. And we need to do much more of it.
There is now, it's great that there's the focus and support. Tell us what you are doing in the space for veterans.
Well, I'm police veterans. We've created, I guess just to backtrack a little, a year ago we did a walk across the state to raise awareness for police veterans and to raise money to support police veterans, and we raised a good sum of money, both with the Police Association and myself. In fact, we each walked 500 kilometres across the state.
Wow.
And to raise that awareness, we got to talk to a lot of police veterans on that path, a lot of whom are dealing with wellness, dealing with mental illness issues. And we've been able to use that money to establish Police Veteran Support Victoria, a brand new organisation with dedicated resources to work with police veterans.
Was close to what? $500,000? It's an incredible feat. How are the calf muscles after that, mate?
I had a few blisters, probably nothing like Darcy's had to deal with over the years. But
he's fine.
Yeah,
Forget about Darcy.
It all comes back to me.
And I believe that Chemist Warehouse have come on board as support through the Veterans Benefit Card.
yes, as part of establishing Police Veterans Support Victoria, we've actually established a veterans card. And so we want police veterans to get this card as not only acknowledgement of their service, but it's got benefits attached to it. And we're very grateful that Chemist Warehouse were the first corporate supporter to come on board, and they're offering discounts to holders of the card. And pvsv.org.au is the website for police to register for that card, and couldn't happen without Chemist Warehouse, and they've been great partners in the card, absolutely.
Yeah, as Graham said, for more information and to find out how you can help, go to retiredpeersupport.com.au. Commissioner Graham Ashton, you've been a great leader, a great champion in this space. Thanks for joining us today on the House of Wellness.
Thanks, Luke.
Well, we know that honey is a great natural sweetener and has a stack of health benefits as both a food and a medicine. Heinzie, is honey healthier than sugar?
What I love about honey is that it's unprocessed, unrefined and packed with antioxidants. But as far as honey's use as a medicine goes, it's got bioactive plant compounds and antioxidants. And that's especially true for Manuka honey, made from the nectar of the Manuka bush. Researchers are now using its unique properties to fight infections.
Honey in general has been used as a medicine throughout the history of the human race. And we didn't really understand how it worked as a medicine, just knew that it was useful. And now we're understanding that it's actually because honey has this really potent antibacterial activity.
Dr. Neural Coxettin has been researching the superpowers of honey for 10 years.
So there's lots of different types of honey. I think it's one of the common misconceptions that people have is that honey is just a standard or a generic product. But actually we've got hundreds of different types. And the differences are because the bees visit different flowers to collect nectar that they turn into honey.
The buzz word in honey these days is Manuka, the king of the honeys.
All honey will have some level of antibacterial activity, but Manuka has a special component, a chemical that comes from the nectar. That chemical in the honey is called methyl glyoxal, or MgO, and often you'll see lots of different types of Manuka labelled with levels of MgO that denotes that antibacterial activity.
But wait, there's more.
There's another chemical in the nectar of the plant, DHA, or dihydroxyacetone, and what happens when the bees take the nectar, as the honey matures in the comb, that DHA converts to MgO over time, and that's why we get this really active honey at the end.
Getting the purest form of Manuka means the bees pollinate with Manuka plants only. Then it's just a case of knowing which one to buy.
One of the most confusing things for consumers when they want to buy Manuka honey is they go to the shop and they see all of these different jars, all different prices, all different rating systems and numbers on there. All of those grades on Manuka are referring to how much of this antibacterial activity it has. UMF, which stands for unique Manuka factor, and that's a grading system where it looks at the activity of honey, and basically the higher that number is, the more active the honey is.
So whether you smear it on toast or on your skin, use it as a daily tonic or to treat a sore throat. The versatility of Magic Manuka really is unbelievable.
Still to come, American activist Erin Brockovich shines the light on an important health concern for Aussie tradies. That's next on the House of Wellness. Welcome back. to the House of Wellness. Now, Bianca, unfortunately didn't get to join us in Hawaii. Sorry about that.
Oh, remind me again.
But the Wanderlust Festival, you have been before. Tell me a bit about that.
Yes, I absolutely loved it when I went. And this time, my good friend Laura Geitz got to experience the wonders of Wanderlust. And it's a festival that's in its 10th year now, but it happens all over the world in beautiful places, and it's all gathers superstars of yoga, meditation and mindfulness, and it's just a really great place, guys, to get your on.
So Bianca's handballed this one to me.
Relax your neck.
So first things first, what is Wanderlust? Well, it means the wish to travel far and wide to many different places, and that can be physical or spiritual.
Well, Wanderlust is an exploratory festival. We want people to come down and experience different ways of doing yoga, doing meditation, so they can take away new skills and new practices in order to transform their life.
I love that Wanderlust challenges people's idea of what yoga is. So often we go, oh, you know, yoga is slow, yoga is meditative, yoga is like, I'm never going to, you know, you have these people that have these ideas and they get really like stressed about yoga. So this challenges their idea of what yoga is and invites them to play with the idea of yoga and find their own version of a yoga practice.
One breath, one movement.
It is a Coachella for yogis.
3, 2, 1, let's go, guys!
I'm liking this transformation thing, but to be transformed, there's a few things to do. Like a 5K run.
Have you run the whole way?
A mass meditation, followed by an all-in yoga session, which has been amplified.
Amplified Yoga is only 3 years old, and I just had an opportunity, a stage, a DJ, and it just poured out of me.
Donovan McGrath is the amplified yoga guru.
It uses sound, rhythm, when it's in full production, color therapy, lights, and so all this is coming together to give people an opportunity to eliminate the accumulation of tension, pressure, and stress.
Okay, so let's get into it.
Amplified Yoga is available to everybody. I've had people coming into my classes that have practiced Kundalini for 20 years. It's for them. I've had people that have never done yoga in their life. It's for them. So you can use this ancient yogic technology and apply it in a modern way. That's what I do, is what I bring to people. It's very accessible, and I lighten people up intentionally.
Positivity. Positivity.
How would you expect that most of these people will feel after the routine?
They're going to feel liberated. They're going to feel, hopefully, just very elevated, energized, open-hearted. So there's a lightness. So I always say we lighten ourselves up intentionally, and we bring ecstasy into the body naturally.
Until this craze hits Aussie shores, I think I might have to settle for the local nightclub.
And joining us at the health bar, our own GQ, Gerald Quigley joins us, who liked the festival back in the day. In fact, I believe you're a hippie, front and centre, 1969 at Woodstock, Gerald. What was Woodstock like?
1972, Das, Australia Day. I remember it well because your dad was there. I remember it was good fun.
Oh, that was the Sunbury Festival.
That's it, yes.
Amazing. I can see you as a flower power hippie.
Just enjoyed it immensely.
All right, enough reminiscing, GQ. This week we want to look to the future, especially for those who are planning or already are pregnant.
And the superfood, the superhero in this discussion, Joe, is folic acid. So that's the real... Now, folic acid, we know, plays a very important role in preconception and early pregnancy, in reducing the risk of neural tube defects. The common one, sadly, is spina bifida.
And how common are those birth defects in Australia?
About 1 in 1,000 Australian babies. So enough that it's a real problem, and it happens when the spinal cord and brain fuse. So when that process is occurring, folic acid is really important. And this is why it's so important to understand that preconception, pre-pregnancy, when you're thinking about conceiving, you've got to start on folate, and then once pregnancy occurs for the first 3 months.
So I've heard it called folic acid and folate. Are they the same thing?
Folate is the naturally occurring folic acid in food. So it's folate-rich foods, and there's lots of those, green leafy vegetables. So when we talk of a supplement or we're fortifying food because you can buy folic acid or folate in rich food, then we talk about folic acid.
OK, so we're looking at green foods like broccoli, Brussels sprouts, spinach, green beans and lettuce. Delicious. They're all naturally rich in folate. Where else is it found naturally?
Well, you can get folate in all of those. There's fruits like avocado and oranges, nuts and eggs. There's lots. In fact, folate is really commonly held in most foods. The difficulty, Joe, in that is that if you cook a folate-rich food, because folic acid's water-soluble, it leaches out. So it's really difficult to cope with that. So you have likely microwaved, steamed, raw, even better, of the vegetables we know, and most. You can't go wrong with lots of veggies.
Absolutely, but are we going to get enough folate, especially if we're pregnant?
No, we don't. We can't, for all sorts of reasons, and you can really make sure that you get enough folate by considering a supplement, and that's the most important message here.
Thank you so much, GQ. As always, a wealth of wisdom. The A to Z of vitamins is brought to you by NutriCare Pregma Plus, the only multi-stage soluble supplement to support your pregnancy journey.
Yes, welcome back. Australia loves a good home reno, especially done on a budget. A host of TV makeover shows have inspired low-cost DIY projects in homes across the nation, Joe.
Well, it is true. It's put the dream of a gleaming white kitchen, bathroom or laundry within the grasp of many with artificial stone benchtops, a relatively cheap option. However, the stonemasons who cut these slabs are inhaling large amounts of damaging dust, which is leading to a potentially fatal lung disease known as silicosis.
When it comes to the manufacturing side, the dust is pretty horrendous. I spent a lot of my time wearing paper, disposable face masks, and to be honest, they don't do a lot at all.
Dean Morris began working as a stonemason when he was 19. He's now aged 40 and has been diagnosed with silicosis.
So I was like, no, not me, no. I was forced to cease work and get further tests done, so I did, and eventually got my diagnosis. Just so many things go through your head, things you can't help, especially negative thoughts. I've got kids, I'm young at heart, I've got a lot of life to live.
Grab a seat up the top there, Jared, and we'll just have a listen there. So if you can just turn around a little bit that way, I'm just going to tap down your back first of all. I'm currently treating approximately 40 patients with silicosis, and this is an extraordinarily high number. Over the last 10 years, I probably would have seen about 1 or 2 patients with a silicosis. So this is a very, very large number that I'm seeing at the moment. Just a few more deep breaths in and out through your mouth.
Dr. Ryan Hoy is a respiratory physician. He says that there's currently no cure or any treatment for this severe, irreversible lung disease.
Screening is extremely important to identify silicosis as early as possible. In the early stages of silicosis, people don't have any symptoms, so no shortness of breath or cough. It's only once the disease progresses to the point it causes severe scarring in the lungs that symptoms will become apparent. We want to identify it early, so then measures can be taken to try to reduce the risk of progression of the disease.
These days there are stricter requirements when it comes to cutting dry stone, although how well monitored this is still an unknown. As is the future for men like Dean.
There are definitely times when I do things and I get reminded that I'm limited. Well, it's unknown. It leaves questions in your mind of multiple things. What am I going to be like in 20 years, in 10 years, when I retire? Am I going to be plugged into an oxygen tank or... So, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it definitely plays in your mind.
Yeah, Shine Lawyers are one legal firm who are acting on behalf of silicosis victims. And joining us now is environmental and corporate activist who's become world famous through her work in this area. Please welcome Erin Brockovich to the House of Wellness. Hello, Erin.
Hello, good morning. It's nice to be here.
Great to have you. Erin, you made your name battling corporations, namely the Pacific Gas and Electric Company, over contaminated water in the 90s. It was a worldwide phenomenon, the movie named after you. Why now the interest in silicosis?
You know, when I began my work in Hinckley, it was certainly there's a corporation there, but it was about the people. It was about their public health and welfare. And, you know, just watching the clip that you've had is precisely why I'm involved in this. There's so many unfortunate lack of information, cover-ups, misguided information that render thousands and tens of thousands of innocent people in a very hopeless situation. And it's about protecting them and public health and welfare. And this story with silicosis, we've kind of seen it coming. There's been, you know, something where we should have made movements earlier on, but I don't know why we wait. That is distressing to me and can be preventable. So here we now have this news everywhere about the silicosis and young men dying and dropping dead. That is just inexcusable. And so Shine Lawyers has moved forward with helping these people clearly through the course of the law. There's 160. There will be more here in Australia. We've made some movements here in Victoria. You have banned the process, and it can't just stop here. You have to ban the process throughout the entire country for the benefit of public health.
So that is only a ban in Victoria, not for the rest of the country, which
currently,
is
yes,
distressing in itself. How big of a problem is it?
Well, it's a big problem. Again, it's a big problem in the United States. Think about the stonecutters across the world who are doing renovations and building. And look at all the building that's going on right here in Melbourne right now. I was shocked when I came in. I'm like, wow. Yeah. But all of that's going to find its way. So it is a big industry. And it's one that we need to get ahead of our problems. So you have an opportunity here. You have an opportunity here to change it now, to save some lives. And we need to have a ban. And if it is around, it needs to be wet cutting. It can't be dry cutting. And we can stop a process before it gets seriously out of control and more people are harmed.
So, Erin, why were importers allowed to bring this practice in the first place?
You know, that's a really good question. I mean, because oftentimes imports coming in from other places, we don't have appropriate regulations. We don't have appropriate oversight with our agencies requiring what you're bringing in, what's in your product, and you need to show us the safety of that product before we allow it into our country.
Is it that the regulations aren't keeping up with new technologies and materials, or we just don't have the right regulations in place?
I just don't. Well, it's daunting, by the way. I mean, you know, we see this at home with the FDA and everything that's coming in on the state sides. It's quite daunting, but there needs to be guidelines and there needs to be regulations. And what is, and I think it is our responsibility when it comes in, what's in this product. So a lot of times it comes in from somewhere else where there's chemicals in it that, unbeknownst to us, have been passed through. And that is shame on anybody that lets that come through. You need to know what's coming in, and we're starting to see that happen more and more.
But, Erin, in the meantime, these young men are getting affected. So what sort of compensation should they receive?
Oh, well, boy, you know what? There's not enough compensation in the world for anybody when you take their health or they lose their life or their children are left fatherless. But we need to give them the support now. Certainly the medical support, the income that they will need to sustain their families. We have to put all that in place for them. And the insurance and the medical needs that they will need moving forward. They shouldn't have to suffer any further. But there's no amount of money. You know, I've revisited lately many people in Hinckley, California, and justice was served, but yet justice was never served because they lost their life, they lost their health, and they lost their loved ones.
Erin, we are so lucky to have people like you fighting the fight for the little people. Your name's become synonymous with giving a voice to people who felt like they've had no hope. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for, again, the information and pushing out that awareness is key to protecting others.
Thank you. Erin Brockovich on the House of Awareness. Plenty more still to come right after the break.
Now today, for the base of my hash browns, I'm using a store-bought cauliflower rice. And you need to squeeze out all the excess water because we want the consistency to be dry enough that we can mix all the other ingredients into it. I'm going to add 2 eggs. Then I'm using wholemeal flour, a little bit of extra fibre, and mix the eggs through. Just finely chop your spring onions, the white and also the green. Now, to take this nutritionally to the next level, I'm going to use Bioglan Organic Maca Powder. Now, this is a really interesting product. It's native to Peru, and it's actually a family of the radish as well. It's a root vegetable. They would use it for natural medicine, but it contains beautiful nutrients like iron, zinc, calcium, but it's the flavour. It's got this lovely earthy, almost just a little bit sweet. Pop that in with the mixture. Gently combine all the ingredients, and then I'm going to spoonful a little bit of the hash brown into a pan with some good quality extra virgin olive oil. My cauliflower hash browns are cooking, and I'm going to start on my yogurt tomato accompaniment. I love that beautiful fragrant flavour that dill has. A little bit of lemon zest, and last but not least, a little bit of lemon juice. Now, this is a dish that can take the humble hash brown beyond breakfast.
Now, that looks amazing. I want to eat that for lunch today. The cauliflower hash brown. Cauliflower is the king of the veggies, isn't it, Heinz?
Oh, mate, I thought you'd never ask. Guys, cauliflower is a cruciferous vegetable, as are things like broccoli, Brussels sprouts, bok choy, cabbage, kale, and I tell you what, cauliflower is chock full of nutrients that boost heart and brain health, along with antioxidants to reduce inflammation, which, as Gerald was saying earlier, is vital to support a healthy pregnancy. You can turn it into cauliflower nuggets, cauliflower pizza, cauliflower bread. Oh, hang on, what was your question? The short answer, mate, yes. Cauliflower is the king.
Well, I love food and cooking and health, and one of my biggest influences is physician, journalist and author Michael Mosley, who has an answer for just about everything.
Actually getting a bit dirty turns out to be pretty good for you. It changes the bacteria in your gut and reduces your risk of developing allergic disease later in life. Perhaps, but probably not. The jury's out. My thoughts on red meat is I like eating it, and I do it about once, twice a week, and I try and confine myself to about 100 grams, which is about a palm's worth. You should probably drink a couple of litres. Most people don't drink anything like enough, and fizzy water is fine, or you stick some lemons or some limes or something, gives it a bit of flavour. But pour the liquid down, it's really good for you. My favourite drink is red wine, strangely enough. My biggest food weakness is chocolate. Once I start, I do not stop. One of the things I would probably never eat again is fermented shark, because it was the most disgusting thing I have ever eaten. Craziest thing I have done was swallow some cysts which turned into tapeworm, and they grew in my gut to about 8 metres. I have yet to find something crazier than that, but I'm thinking about it. Best advice I've ever been given is that things improve after school. Hated school, and it got so much better after that. I am thoroughly happy with the age I am now. When I was 21, I was full of angst. Now I'm just kind of really quite pleased that my life has been productive.
Words of wisdom there from health guru Michael Mosley. And Joe told us his favourite drink's red wine, so you'd love him even more now, wouldn't you?
Well, I mean, it's all about balance, Darcy, and I'm very good at balancing a drinks tray.
I have seen that in Hawaii. Now, that's it for this week. You can head to houseofwellness.com.au for more information on anything that we've covered and more. Plus, remember to tune into our radio show every Sunday. And as always, thanks to our very good friends at Chemist Warehouse. We'll see you next time.